Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the studio. And tonight we're going to dig into the Scorpion. This thing is still sealed. This is a 2014 re-release. I'm sure there's 1,000 videos on YouTube about it, but we're going to build ours. And going to change it up a little bit. It's not going to be exactly box art. I have a different color tub that we're going to use. And yeah, just to do a little bit different theme on it. But anyways, let's get dug into this box. And yeah, a little dust on me. I'm cleaning the floor at work with my shirt. But anyways, let's get dug in and get started on this thing. Alright, I guess this is another unboxing of sorts. There'll be two for this week. If you hadn't seen the new Element Comp Fox video, we got that started. Well, we got it open. Got to get the parts and get it going too, so no shortage of projects. Kaboom there. Pretty cool old school presentation. For the most part, your transmission's built. I think you got to build the diff. I built one of these 10 years ago. No, actually, there's the diff. It's built. You just have to install it. Tires already pre-mounted. I don't think they're glued. And thank goodness the tire writing is already on the tires, but it looks like the rear tire has gotten a little damage from shipping. Shocks are built. You just got to add oil. There's your body. It's not much of a body. That's all the Lexan you get. And there's your tub. Said we're going to change the tub a little bit. I ordered a Kyosho America. I ordered a black tub for the 2014 Scorpion. It gives a little bit more options on paint colors. But I think the body's going to be kind of a beachy theme. It's going to be black with like a sunset thing going on in the hood. So stay tuned for that once we get this thing built. Alright, first thing in the box is, or under the blister pack, is your box of car. Everything is in there. Chassis, parts, pieces. There's the roll cage, the battery tray or the battery door, the driver's head, and the wing. We're going to have to do something different with the wing because, like I said, we're doing a black tub. That tub kit does not come with a wing. It just comes with the battery door. May run a aluminum wing or a possible just a Lexan wing. There's your chassis. It's just two frame rails. Some thread lock, some hardware, antenna tube, pinion gear, and or an optional like an spur gear type thing, because it's got like a weird setup on the transmission. Rear suspension, roll bar, full bearings. I see bearings in there. I believe that's a tool, actually. Those little red pieces. I think, if I remember correctly, I think that's a tool. Bearings, pinion gear in there. So you got optional gears. I guess that might be a speed gear setup. Spare parts. And lastly, bag E. Looks like the roof. It's got an aluminum roof. That's why I'm thinking maybe getting an aluminum wing. Wheel nuts, body pins, miscellaneous items. There's nothing under the tires. Instructions and a big pre-cut decal sheet. Alright guys, I got it pretty much set up here. I stand corrected on the tires. They're just printed on with ink. And I took my white Sharpie paint pen, couldn't help myself, and went ahead and touched them up. The Y and the shoe got a little janky on that one, but that'll be okay. It'll look good in pictures. Plus we're going to run this thing, so it's going to get knocked off anyways. First things first, we got our thread lock out of the bag. Collecting our tools, we got our hex drives, got some needle nose, some pliers, some side cutters, razor blade. And first things first, we're going to start building the front shock tower and the frame rails. If I remember correctly, this thing goes together pretty quick because the shocks are already done. The transmission's about, I don't know, transmission started. The diff's built, so that's cut out a lot of the tedious work. A lot of metal on metal parts here, so definitely use thread lock. And it comes with thread lock, so there's no excuses not to use it. Front shock towers are first thing up, and you run these 6x12. Oh, 2.6 by 12. They're not even 3, they're 2.6s. And then the 12s. Just a drop. I don't know. I do like some old school RC. I don't know the true history of this car. I just know it was originally, it was a Kyosho car, but it was distributed, at least in America, through Cox. And Cox did a lot of the 049 and like control line planes and little 049 cars that run on a string. And this was the Cox Scorpion. And it was distributed through Cox. And it was a Kyosho car even back then. I think it was around 80, somewhere around 83, 82 maybe. It was pre-RC10, I know that much. And RC10 was 84. Too quiet out here. Can't run my radio because of trademark stuff, copyright stuff. I just have to talk to myself to entertain myself. I'm about to squeeze this thing and it's going to give me all the thread lock at one time. Alright, I'm going to hop off when we get something significant done here, because this is pretty much just building the 2 frame rails. We're going to put the servo saver in it and a servo saver mount, which is this, which is like the equivalent of your nose plate on a modern car. Kind of goes like so-ish. And once we got more of a chassis going here, I'll pop back on. Alright, we buzzed through bag A pretty quick and on to bag B. And bag B is the front suspension and steering setup. We built the steering servo saver in the last step. I didn't film any of that. Not super exciting. Now we are going to install the steering rack and or the servo saver, and along with that we got this steel upper tube, and that holds our control arm, I believe. And this all goes together pretty straightforward as well. And this takes 4x15, so we got 4 of those, or 3x15, 4 of them. And the nut that holds them on is also, this gets a little fiddly here because the nut that holds it on is also the it's the nut that holds this upper rod in place. And the pictures are pretty vague on the direction of that rod, and there's no there's no real description on exactly how the tube looks like it goes up. So we got to get a little red lucky on there. This acts a little bit like, or a lot like, a cinch block on a old school pan car. It holds that upper bar in place. Got that one started. We'll get another one started here. This does remind me, or refreshes me on when I built my first one 10 years ago. I remember this being, because it's so kind of vague, because this front end will swivel all kinds of directions, and you have to get the measurements side to side, because it will determine how square the front end is. It don't really, okay, there's markings on here, and I got them covered up. There's 3 tiny little marking lineup pins. And what they line up with is basically just the dead center of this block. There is a notch on the inside of this block. I just seen it. I just don't see. Okay, there it is. That is very faint for my bad eyeballs, but okay, there's like 3 notches and there's a straight line on the left side. And I almost wonder if the 3 notches are caster adjustments, possibly. Because you have a straight line inside the block that lines up with the 3 notches. And you have a straight line over here that butts up to the edge. And how in the world did I just luck up and get that on the right side? I have no idea, but I did. See, I'm not reading ahead, folks. I'm just going off of instincts. And we just got lucky. Up next is the rear suspension mounts. And a gearbox mount, probably. And or there's the rear suspension mount right here. And facing downward. These face downward. Obviously, because you got countersunk holes. Go in the hole. It's your home. There you go. Another dab of do you. Up next is building the transmission, and it's pretty much just putting the gears in the box. Everything is already built. So we're going to hop back once we get the transmission piece together, and yeah, we'll be installing it next because it's actually wanting you to put the motor in, but we're not going to put a motor in it yet. Well, I may because I have a motor. So we'll be right back once we get the transmission built, and we'll go forward. All right, we're back. We got the transmission built. This thing is built like a tank. It's all cast metal. They updated the gears in 2014 to accept modern powertrain. It has a ball diff. Everything's metal internal, all 48 pitch. I think it's standard 48 pitch. I'm not positive on that. It does have a slipper, even though it's kind of tiny. So it's got a slipper clutch. The only thing I don't like is the motor is not adjustable, so you're just kind of stuck with the gear you got. It does have an optional gear, so you have to change this counter gear to run the optional gear. But not a big deal. We're not really going to really race this thing. We're just going to kind of play with it a little bit and run it. But anyways, for powertrain, it's asking us to put the motor in now. Steve at OAS had donated a 2BLS system. This is the new Tractions 2S brushless system. It comes in there ready to run stuff. This is brand new, never been run. It's probably equivalent to maybe like a 13.5, maybe a little more mild than that. But I think this will be plenty of power for this car and probably be a perfect setup for it. So it's a 540 size can. So we're going to see if it'll work. We're going to throw that in there. That'll work out nice. Kind of run the wires forward right over the shock tower there, or right under it, however we need to go. You do have to take the counter gear off in order to get the motor in because one of the screws is right behind it. And this is the stock gearing, and the mesh is set for you, so that's a no-brainer. You just put it on. There you go. There's your gear setup. It's all already predetermined, and we're good to go. We'll throw this gear cover on because the only thing that holds that counter gear on is the pin that holds the dust cover on. So it's just kind of goes on there, and I stand corrected. This motor shaft is so long, I'm going to have to run a spacer behind it and move the motor out this way in order to not cut the cover open. So we just learned another thing. So we're going to put a motor spacer in there. I believe I have one. And move that motor back because I can't move the pinion gear down anymore. Plus the motor shaft is so long it's going to hit anyway. So let me see if I can find the spacer and we'll be right back. All right, luckily I had some old pan car stuff. It's just the old motor spacer, not even maybe 3 mils. And that gives us just enough room put our gear cover on there. So we're all sitting flat now. And I'm not sure if the O-ring is going to fit. It should fit because that's what was on there. Okay. That O-ring is kind of a dust cover. There. Installed. There's our completed gearbox. And the next step is installing the gearbox onto the chassis. Well, actually, it's putting the roll bars on. So we put the roll bars on the transmission before. All right. We're into the plastic bag. I believe this is all we need here. Is the 2 lowers and the wraparound. There's that motor protector thing I was looking for a minute ago. I'll put this motor guard on now that I found it. Not sure what that really does, but it's there, so we're going to use it. Follow the instructions, folks. Where'd my 2mm go? There it is. Trying to do this in one night. It's kind of a marathon to get it at least in a roller form, and then get this edited, get it up. That's just a little protector. I guess it just stabilizes the gearbox so the motor doesn't bend the motor plate. Makes sense. If you ever get hit right there, it'll be a little bumper for the motor to hit and not bend your motor plate. So it's kind of a smart little thing there. They did that for a reason. All right, I'm going to hop off and come back since we got the transmission complete. Sorry I didn't film the building of the transmission. It's just a matter of putting all the gears in it. They built the ball diff. They already had the cross shaft in. It's just a matter of putting the diff in it and closing the case up. Yeah, I'm going to hop off and we'll be right back. All right, we're about to mate the gearbox to the chassis, and this thing's going to start to look like a car real quick. So I'll hop back on right quick. And we'll start buttoning this thing up. Got a couple of metal on metal fasteners here. They go directly into the transmission. Yeah, we got 3 going metal to metal, and then we got 2 with lock nuts going to the roll bars. Don't have to put mega torque on all this stuff. You just tighten it up. Thread lock will do its work. Don't want to take a chance of stripping out some of this cast transmission case. Up next is building the shocks. The shocks are already built, but basically filling them with oil. I'm going to skip that step because of time limitations. The shocks are already built. We'll go straight into building the rear trailing arms. And yeah, that will complete the rear suspension. Then it's onwards to the front. Here's our rear suspension arms. Very cool. Kind of cast aluminum. They're almost semi-polished. They're a really smooth finish. They're not like sand cast. They're pretty smooth. And yeah, that's pretty straightforward too. You just we are moving on to, are we going to bag E yet? Where's our drive shafts? Nope, we're getting into this bag that was in bag D or C. All right, we're gonna hop off. Just got to throw bearings in here, stub axle. Nothing too exciting to see there. No need to build shocks tonight. We're not racing this thing tomorrow. Bearing. And the bearing. Go in pretty nice. Now these have a unusual drive to kind of just press to fit. It's just got those little knurls on there to grab the back of the wheel. I do believe the Turbo Scorpion has hexes on it, and you can run the bigger wheels. So you do have that option to upgrade to a 12 mil hex is on pretty much everything these days. but they are captured. That's a good thing. Silky smooth. Repeat the process. We got both arms built. We got our shock mounts put on. We did have to break out the calipers. These need to be at 8 millimeters for clearance, I imagine, for the bottom of the shocks. They kind of just snap on there. Up next is installing the rear shocks or rear suspension and the rear roll bar. So let's get on it. All right, I got a little better angle there. Up next is these rear suspension mounts. You got an inner and an outer. We got a little, it looks like old wing mounts for a pan car, sort of. We got the little tiny short one and a tall one. Okay. So the outer is the taller one, and it's a 3x8 flathead. 3x8 outer. That's definitely going to require some thread lock. There we go. Now we can tighten that up. Yep. There's another one of them steps where you got to do about 3 things at the same time. They want you to put the dog bone in with a little bit of grease. I don't like that idea, but we'll do it. Dog bone. Control arm. Hinge pin. And there we go. Got 2 set screws in the top. All right, that pretty much wraps up the rear end. It's hard to get these things lined up just right where it's not binding, because every time I seem to tighten it down, it'll bind up the rear arms. This is an old design, very old. But getting these things the exact angle are not the easiest thing in the world to do. Next thing up is our aluminum roll bar, and it simply just goes right there. And then we'll be moving on to the front suspension. So we are not far from having at least a roller tonight. I ought to just do these videos live, but then you'd see me fumbling around with all the stuff that I don't show you. I'd be cussing this thread locker that keeps gooping out everywhere. The shocks front and rear, I do believe they are different. The rears are slightly longer. So, say the bottom just kind of snaps in place. Top's got a bushing. Nothing unusual here. And a nylon lock nut. And that would have been a lot easier with the roll bar off. But that's okay. We're not going to run this thing immediately after building it, so we got time to show it off for a minute before we get it dirty. Alright, we're just going hand tight for now. But there's our rear suspension. It actually feels pretty good with no oil in them. So, you know, they make, I don't think they have oil in them, because they come with shock oil. It feels like it's got oil. Maybe it don't. Maybe it's just the O-rings I'm feeling. But either way, there's our rear suspension completed. Almost 99% minus shock oil. Now we're up to the front end. Yeah, that's steering rod right there. Two-sided tape. We won't need that today. We got our control arms kind of mocked up. Just had to put a shock mount. Again, 8 millimeters. And our rear, or not rear, but our actual, what the knuckle that the steering blocks are going to attach to. Everything here is cast aluminum or some sort of pot metal. Pretty nice finish on them. Everything's kind of shiny and smooth and fits pretty good. It's really good for the 1980s design that it is. All right, we got one of these. And need some ball ends. There's a ball end. A little bit of goobery thread lock. These are 2.5. These are big ones. It's got pretty massive like caster camber gains because it is a trailing arm, but it has to have steering. So the steering does, the tires tend to lean over pretty hard, like a reactive caster or a camber. And now it's got us building turnbuckles. I'm not going to bore you with turnbuckle building. As far as turnbuckles, this is the first time I've actually had a proper tool. It's a little Eco Power shock wrench and or turnbuckle tool. And that's coming in really handy with these non-turnbuckle linkages. Pretty straightforward. The little tool it comes with is very easy to use, easy on the fingers. And using the proper tool here does feel a little bit better. We're not scratching up our linkage and making it look trashy. Thread's looking somewhat equal on both sides to help with the OCDs. 43.78, about a half a round. And being close enough. Again, this is just a rough build. We're not going to run it yet. We can tune it in after the fact. 43.95, that's close enough to 44 to me. All right, we got all of our turnbuckles built. Now it is time to install the control arms. And they are pretty odd. So, how does this work? Is that it? Nope. Got to go outwards. Yep. That marker looks awfully strange how it is. I think this needs to be turned up. If I turn it up, I'm going to lose all my markings. What's going on here? That's because I've got the bar on backwards, because I said I was lucky earlier. The markings are supposed to be on the right side. I got them on the left. So let me hop off, switch this bar over before we put our control arms on. All right, we weren't so lucky as I thought earlier. Quick fix though, just had to swap it out from right to left. And now we are going to install our control arms because we can now. Very interesting design. Like I said, it's just a swing axle in the front end, just like the back end. Nothing like you would typically see. Now, if you're thinking we got a swing arm truck or a car right over there, that's Chris's A&L RC10. The rear control arms are really similar, but not quite. I don't know. I'm going to take a better look at them. That one's got 1/4-inch axles, I know that much. So they have to be different. This one's metric. All right. There's our front suspension arms doing suspension things. Upper control link. Okay. We got to install our steering blocks. These don't have to be any particular. Yes, they do. 8.5 mils. Let's see where we are on my eagle eye here. 8.5 from the base of the nut to the top of the ball. I am at 7.6. Missed that one by a whole millimeter. Base to the top. That's 8. Seems like a lot. 8.5. Seems like it'd break off. 8.69. Close enough. 8.4 something. I guess you need clearance so the steering linkage doesn't get bound up. If it was right hammer down on top of that steering link, it'd probably get bound up. And then this simply goes on there. And then another ball stud with a nut. And it's only 7.5. Looks like about a half a thread showing, so we're gonna eyeball that one. Just out of curiosity. They want 7.5 to the base, the top. That just seems awfully tall. This little wrench here did come with the car, and it definitely comes in handy because there's a lot of tight spaces adjusting these ball ends. Zero. $7.45. That'll work for me. Clean up some of my messy thread lock. All right, we can go ahead and put our steering linkage on since our bell crank is installed slash servo saver. All right, I think we are ready to install some shocks that aren't quite ready to install because they're not filled. But for video purposes tonight, we are installing shocks. I'm just hand tightening them again since they're going to have to come right back off to get oil in them. So no need to torque everything down yet. Spacer. All right. Next step is the front bumper. We'll throw that on since we're here. No, I didn't put any thread lock on these. I'm not super worried about the bumper falling off per se. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to go back and do it so you don't have to cinch down. This is like a Kydex style bumper, and imagine if you torque it down too much, you can just run the screw right through it. Bumper installed. Up next is the radio box, but we're going to skip that for now. We're going to go straight to installing wheels. So we're jumping pretty far ahead here on the bags, but I think I can figure it out from here. Sorry about the terrible camera angles tonight, guys. Just trying to get something out. Wasn't expecting to do that Element unboxing Monday. So I was planning on starting this Monday night or even Sunday afternoon. And we would have been quite a bit further along if we would have stuck with that schedule. But it's always fun to be somewhat current with new releases. And my buddy picked up that in Element Enduro and Comp Fox. We got to do an unboxing the same week it arrived. Same week it hit the store shelves anyways. And this friction mounted thing, you got to put a little pressure on the wheel to get it to finally bite, but it works good. I've seen people throw a lot of power at these cars and not strip a wheel out. That's amazing how good that feels with no shock oil in it. But there we go. We have a roller in one evening. We're down to putting our radio box in. We got a black radio box because the next step is the big yeller here. Kind of goes like so. We're going to go with the black one just to give us more options on paint jobs, but we still have the yellow one for if we ever decide to paint a body yellow. My first one I did yellow. I did it kind of a yellow and orange, not quite box art either. I'll throw a picture up if I can find it. And yeah, there you go. There's you a Scorpion roller in one evening. Not too bad to build. A lot of this is just me rushing. I would have caught that. The directions are a little vague. There's not any like real wording other than the screw sizes, but that's just an easy mistake to make. But we got it together right. All we had to do is simply flip it around. All right, guys, that's a wrap for tonight's video. Not too bad for one evening. I don't know, a good 2.5 hours, and we got us a good roller here. I want to thank the viewer and subscriber that donated these kits again. We got these, I think, back in August, I believe, and been looking forward to building them ever since. The Optima is going to definitely be a little bit more tedious, and I won't be trying to rush through it. A couple of hop-ups I want to do to that car before we start building on it, so we need to get this one finished first. Next video, like I said, we'll be doing the paint. We got a black tub. We're going to do a black color scheme on the body, but something beachy at the same time. So we're going to do some sort of sunset on it, some 80s style graphics. But yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. If you want to join the membership, you can join. And yeah, thanks for the support, and we'll see you next time.